Hello, Garland Nixon here. And in America, when people talk about the blue line, it's usually about law enforcement officers hiding criminality by a fellow officer. We're going to talk about the same effect in politics. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. And that's kind of weird. Let me see. I just lost part of my sound, but if you'll give me a second. Interesting. All right. Well, here's what I'll do. I will, as always, count on my peeps. I will count on the people in the chat to let me know. Yep, everybody says audio is good here. Somebody put lick the button. Lick the button. No, hit the like button. The like button, not lick the button. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's some new terminology that I haven't heard. So maybe lick the button means something different than I know. But so let's go. All right, so we're going to talk about the blue line. Let's start off with what the hell is the blue? What do I mean when I mean the blue line, and how does it apply to politics? I'm going to start. One might ask, what does Garland know? The blue line in the American political genre it's talking about law enforcement, right? It's something that's people who work for law enforcement accountability in the United States, good luck with that, are interested in. And it has to do with police officers doing things of being involved in illegal or unethical, corrupt behavior, and officers looking out for each other, hiding corrupt behavior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That's what they do in the blue line. And I know a good bit about that. Let me share my screen. And just a couple quick picks. What do you know? Yes, sir. There's old Garland Nixon. You ask me, do I know anything about law enforcement? That was me. At that time, I was a captain. I was in the field, and I was a regional commander. So I was a young guy, athletic guy, pumping iron all the time, regional commander, feeling good. And I was a pretty nice guy. I mean, I wasn't one of these jerky cops, believe me. As I've often said, good luck finding anyone that can ever tell you Garland Nixon arrested him for possession of weed. You won't, because it never happened. I gave a lot of warnings. I was not a guy who was an aggressive person out arresting people and writing a lot of tickets. And I moved up the line, which just goes to show that you don't have to do that in order to move up the line. Here's another picture. Let's see what we got here. What have we got? Just showing a couple quick picks. Quick picks. Don't get the other word. Okay, and there you go. Why isn't that showing up? There we go. Look at that. Major Garland Nixon, Assistant Commander of Field Operations. Yes, sir. That was me. Now, all of that stuff is no good. The cards, years ago, but bottom line. So when I say I was a law enforcement officer, what do you know? The old scales of justice here. I know something about this stuff. I was, ran all that stuff, including internal affairs, right? So I understand. And the thin blue line, there's various elements of it. For instance, there's the issues of this. I've known cops who got caught drinking. They drive down the road, wiggling around a little bit. The blue lights come over, they get pulled over, and it was a cop. And they show them their badge, and the cop put them in the back of the car and took them home. That's an example. That's something that I don't know about now, but when I was a cop, those kind of things happen. Cops. I remember one time I was just an example. One time I was in Baltimore City with some buds, and we're hanging out, again, at the bar, hanging out on a Saturday, nice weather, we young men talking to the girls, whatever the case, right? And there was some kind of a fracas, right? and something happened, and somebody called the police. Back then, wasn't all the shooting and crap. Somebody called the cops. A cop came there. Hey, there was somebody, let's just say a blue shirt, whatever it was, and they come over there. I'm standing in a blue shirt, whatever. They walked over. Oh, we got a description of somebody, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, pulled out my badge and held it up. And they're like, oh, you're a police officer. Yep. And they basically said, anybody here give you a problem? Because point them out. And I'm like, no, nothing's going on. There were some guys in a fight. They left 5 minutes before you guys got here. Off they went, right? So the bottom line is this. There's a certain level of camaraderie amongst police officers. You can call it right, wrong, or indifferent. It is what it is. But that ain't what I'm talking about. It's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, here's another example. This is a perfect example of what we're going to be talking about here in politics. One of the things that happened to me was there was somebody who gave out contracts for a particular maintenance contract, a police officer. And somebody came to me and said, hey, that guy's getting something in return for giving out contracts. Illegal. You work for the state and you give out contracts and they do something for you. Well, I was torn because I'm like, I'm not a fink. I don't want to rat on people. But if somebody finds out, if somebody comes and says, hey, Garland was told and he didn't do anything about it, I'm going down. So I just went to my supervisor. I said, look, I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. I don't know anything about it. This person came to me and they said, that guy's giving out contracts and he's getting something in return. I can't vouch for anything, but I don't want to get in trouble because I held on to that information, right? Now, they looked into it. They found out the guy wasn't and what have you, but I wasn't going down with the ship, right? The blue line, when people talk about that, is when cops see somebody beat somebody up, lie, steal, cheat, even something like that, and they say, okay, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because cops got to look out for cops, right? Criminal activity, terrible things going on, and cops look out for each other. That's the blue line. Now, I bring that up because, as many people know, even though I resigned in protest, I used to be a member of the American Civil Liberties Union. I was on the board for Maryland, and I was on the National Board of Directors at one time. And the thing that I worked on, being an ex-law enforcement officer, was police accountability. I was a former law enforcement officer, and I didn't feel it was good for law enforcement, for cops to be going out here beating the crap out of each other, out of people, and doing illegals, robbing, stealing, doing everything you could think of and hiding it. I didn't think, and not being held accountable. I was recognized nationally for the work I did on that because I feel it was important, right? And I'm not talking about some cop that gives a guy a ride home because he's had a few too many beers. Wrong, shouldn't happen. But I'm talking about major criminal stuff, right? Not defending anything, but I'm saying, particularly when cops beat somebody up or hurt somebody or shoot somebody, whatever, and they hide it, right? Violent things. At any rate, so I'm saying all that to go somewhere. Okay, now the two parties in the United States are ostensibly, allegedly separate when it comes to law enforcement, right? The Republicans say we support law enforcement, we support the boys in blue, and what they mean is, hey, no matter what. It means partially is we will not acknowledge that they do things wrong. We won't really acknowledge that. And if every now and then a cop does something wrong, we'll just say he's a bad apple. No problem with the whole system. One cop is bad, and we've just to get rid of that bad apple. The rest of the bushels is good, right? The Democratic Party, they pretend to be, and I say pretend to be the ones who are fighting for police accountability. Well, the blue line, police in the blue line. In fact, you know what? I wonder. Basically, what they're saying. Let me look. BID. I bet you. Let me see. I just searched Biden. Police, bottom line is, I don't really see anything. I'd have to take time to look. Bottom line is, the Democrats argue that they're for police accountability. And they argue that we are pushing back against the blue line. Police accountability. Police can't, do things and hide it from and hide it from enforcement authorities and from the government. Lie and cheat. Somebody shoots somebody, and then the next cop beside him says he lunged at him first. He swung at him. He reached for his gun, and then you see the tape, and he didn't. And the one guy's wrong, cop's wrong for shooting at him. The other cop's wrong for lying. One cop beat somebody up, and the other cop say, "Oh yeah, he beat him up, but he tried to punch the cop first." You see the video, and he didn't. The blue, we're talking about the thin blue line. Cops covering for other people. The Democrat, now the Republicans don't say much about it. Just, hey, cops don't do anything wrong. We got to support them. Democrats, oh, cops, we gotta hold them accountable, and we cannot have this blue line thing. Now, it's important to think about that. This is important because the blue line is what? Accountability. And just because we're a member of the same team doesn't mean that I'm going to support you when you do wrong. When I was in law enforcement, I used to tell the guys that work for me, I'll support you if you're right. If you're wrong, I'm not going to hang for you. So if you're right, I'll help you. I'll work you out. If you're wrong, don't ask me to hang for you. You're going down on your own. I didn't do it. You did. I'm not going down with you, for you. I had a guy one time who had arrested someone. I always tell stories, but whatever. I had a guy that worked for me that arrested someone. And I read, because at that point, I was working out of that very office. And I read the police report. And he, had there had been a fight, and he walked up to the scene, and he basically said, there was a couple guys there's a guy sitting on a bench, and this was after the fight was over and things were cleared. And he said, "You get off the bench and leave." And the guy said, "Why the F do I have to leave?" And he's like, "I told you got to leave and leave." The guy says, "Why the F do I have to leave? I'm not leaving." He grabs the guy and locks him up. I read the incident report, and I call him in, and I said, "I got a question for you." He says, "What?" I says, "Why the F did this guy have to leave?" And he said, "Well, I gave him a lawful order, and I charged him with failing to obey a lawful order." I said, what was lawful about your order? Did you have any evidence that he was involved in the fight? No. Then he was simply exercising his constitutional freedom of movement, sitting on that bench. What authority did you have to tell him to leave the bench? How was the order lawful? You can't just walk up to anybody, citizen sitting on a bench, and say, "You get off the bench." And he just kind of looked at me with a blank stare. And I said, "Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take this case, and you're going to go down to the district attorney's office, state's attorney for us, and you're going to null pros it. And you're going to hope this guy doesn't sue you, because if he does, I'm going to have to testify on his behalf, because you're wrong." Right? That's not the blue line. This guy arrested some guy for sitting on a freaking bench. You're a cop. You can't just say, "Get up off the bench and move." You got to have a constitutionally defendable reason. Okay, so I'm not standing up for this guy because he's wrong, because he's on my team. I'm standing up for the Constitution. I'm standing up for the law, not this guy, right? You get my point? That's the point. You're here to stand up for the law. You're here to stand up for the Constitution. That's what you're paid for. That's what the citizens entrust you to do. That's what you're supposed to do. This is not about the team. This is about me acting as an agent for the people to ensure order, or whatever I'm supposed to be ensuring. I never quite the hell knew. Now, let's get this. So I built my foundation here, right? Built my foundation. So let's now go to politics. Democrats, we'll talk about this. The blue line, cops must be held accountable. But wait a minute. What has been happening recently in the Democratic Party? Evidence of criminal activity by the President of the United States. And what has the Democratic Party done? Have they taken the position of Garland Nixon when I was in law enforcement? Did they say, "Hey, something's been reported"? I had a couple of instances. Well, one of them, somebody reported possible criminal activity against a fellow officer. I thought, I ain't going down with them. Hey, I know nothing that happened, but this was told to me. Now it's off my back. You decide if it gets investigated. If it doesn't, I don't care, right? But I'm not going down for that guy. I'm not standing up for the guy if he's wrong, right? It is the belief in what you allegedly stand for, what you're supposed to be doing. If you're a member of Congress, we pay you well. And we entrust you to stand up for our values. We entrust you what a joke, to stand up for our law, right? How can the Democratic Party say the police department should not hide criminality by another officer? They should stand up and point to that officer and say he did wrong. They should, if they are on scene and an officer is brutal and uses unnecessary force, they should immediately report him. They should stand up and right, this is the position of the Democratic Party. Yet, let's not forget, there were a number of people and Democratic Party and supporters of the party who, when it came out, when Tara Reade made her claims against Joe Biden that she was sexually assaulted by him, who came out and said, I don't care if Joe Biden killed someone. I don't care. One of the actors or something said, I don't care if he had a 12-year-old girl in his bed. They went on and on. They were facetious, but they basically said, we don't care what Joe Biden does, long as Trump loses, right? But yet, these same people would have you believe that ethically and morally, they believe in police accountability. And from their perspective, a police officer must turn in his fellow cop, must write the report. Hey, it was me and Garland grabbed the guy by the back of his head, throttled him about the face and neck for no apparent reason, and then arrested him for police brutality because the guy had the temerity to bleed on his uniform. That's what you're supposed to do if you're a cop. And according to you really are, but according to the Democratic Party, they're all for it. You have to be held accountable. Yet, when the leader of their party is accused of criminal activity, no interest whatsoever. None whatsoever. Worse than that, JFK Jr. comes to testify about what? About the Biden administration. Matt Taibbi, on and on. People coming in to testify that your boss, the Democratic Party's boss, right? That their boss was involved in, let's start here, was involved in extra constitutional activity, shall we say, right? That he was involved in deliberately violating the Constitution, and not just kind of violating it, and not accidentally violating the Constitution. Within days after Joe Biden took office, people from the White House was calling the we're calling the social media platform, saying you must throw this person off. We want this person thrown off. We want that person thrown off. And then they would argue, hey, social media platforms are a private company. There's nothing we can do. And lying about it, using their law enforcement agencies to do an end around the Constitution. You think the law enforcement agencies didn't know that it was outside, it was extra constitutional activity when they had meetings with Twitter, when they told Twitter who to get rid of and who not to get rid of? You think they didn't know they were doing wrong? Well, here's an example. They had Hunter Biden's laptop for a year. And they went and told the social media companies that Hunter Biden's laptop, the whole idea of him, a laptop with potentially illegal activity on it, was a Russian propaganda operation. It wasn't real. They lied deliberately. Not only did they violate the Constitution in that they deliberately went around the First Amendment, that they're not allowed to censor speech. They used private companies. In fact, they used coercion and threats against private companies for these private companies to censor people. Violation of the Constitution, violation of the law, malfeasance of office, right? And what did the Democratic Party do? They did exactly what they say that cops shouldn't do. They didn't say, well, we have to keep an open mind. When there's an allegation made against a member of our team, we got to look into it. Is that what the Democratic Party did? Nope. They attacked the people who came with the information. They attacked the whistleblowers. They attacked the people who were coming to them with allegations and assertions of criminal activity by the Biden administration. Now, recently, what happens? Chuck Grassley comes out with an FBI form, a 1023, and we call it an incident report in our agency, right? Incident report that clearly details criminal activity by Joe and Hunter Biden, and that corroborates previously made allegations against Biden, the Biden team, the Biden family. So you've already got some information. Imagine if somebody says Garland robbed the bank on the 12th, and you don't know Well, what do you know? Any more information? No, we just know that we just hear that he robbed the bank on the 12th. Then a little bit later, you find out that on the 12th at noon, a bank was robbed. Then a little bit later, somebody else tells you, Garland was seen going into that bank at 11:59 and coming out with 2 minutes later with a big satchel. We don't know what was in it, but it said, First National on it, right? They bit by bit, every one of these pieces of information corroborates the one before. Would you say, how dare that guy accuse Garland of robbing a bank? He must be shut up. He must be censored. He can't be allowed to talk. He's probably working for the Russians. You see the point? It's not just that allegations were made, but there was a cascade of allegations, one after the other, and every new allegation corroborated the previous allegation. So what we now have is, clearly, even Joe Biden is part of it. Joe Biden literally said, hey, I told him you got to fire this guy or you ain't getting $1 billion. And meanwhile, the FBI had something that said Joe Biden said was paid $5 million to fire this guy. Everything together, right? And what does the Democratic Party do? They do exactly what they say that police departments shouldn't do. They exercise what we'll call the blue line, since they choose blue and the Republicans are red. They do the blue line thing, and they're like, "Hey, this guy's a Russian asset." Well, even if he were a Russian asset, it wouldn't matter, because the allegations that he's making, the assertions, align with previous assertions and corroborate previous assertions. So you can attack an individual, but what difference does it make? Example. We've had cases where a guy got arrested and he and he got put in lockup, and there was some guy already in lockup, and the guy was in lockup for all kind of terrible things, career criminal, lifelong criminal, blah, 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 blah. And the guy in lockup came to us the next day and said, look, the guy confessed to the murder. Really? Well, how can we trust you? You're a lifelong criminal. Hey, I tell you what, I'm sitting here looking at 10 years. If you can help me out, I can help you out. Oh, really? Tell us did he tell you where the body was? Yeah, he said it's at 5th and Elm. Okay, we go to 5th and Elm. There's the body. Hey, dude, let's talk. You got 10 years. We'll talk to the judge, right? We may get him down to 5, 4, 7, whatever. We're going to do something because this guy, but here's my question. You know what we wouldn't do? We wouldn't say, we're not listening to you. You're a lifelong criminal. We would at minimum do what's called a cursory investigation, right? We would at minimum say, well, he's telling you, he told you that he's the murderer. Yeah. And I might not trust this guy, which I don't. He's trying to looking out for numero uno. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to at least do a cursory investigation. What did he tell you that we can look into? He said the body's at 5th and Elm, and it's behind a rose bush, whatever, right? We go there. There's some freshly turned over earth. We dig it up. We got the body. There you go. Now I figure, hey, something that this guy's telling us is true, right? I don't arbitrarily and summarily dismiss this guy, call him names. Why would we listen to you, you idiot, you thief, you're a Russian asset, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the Democratic Party summarily has dismissed anyone who comes before them. Well, I got evidence that Joe Biden killed somebody. Oh my God, a Russian asset. And they try to censor you. Well, we must stop this guy. Why? We don't want him to be able to testify in front of Congress. Why wouldn't you? I would consider that at minimum a cursory investigation. You got allegations and assertions against a member of your team, the blue team, right? If you're a cop, you've got allegations and assertions against a member of your blue team. You're a Democrat, you got allegations and assertions against a member of your blue team. The question is, what do you do at that point? We know what the Democrats do. They exercise the neoliberal blue line policy, and they say we must attack the person who came with the allegations, that's the really bad thing, because you're sending a message to anybody out there who's got info. What if there's another guy out there that's like, yeah, I got info on Biden. You're going to go to Congress? You friggin' kidding me? Oh, no, that ain't happening. It's called in law, they call it a chilling effect. Their actions have a chilling effect. Look, when Matt Taibbi, he went to Congress and he said, look, they were up to no good at Twitter, and I know where the bodies are buried. He said, I got the files. He released the stuff. So not only did he make assertions, he dug up the files and he released the files that substantiated his assertions. So the Democrats couldn't say, well, how do we know you're telling the truth? All we got to do is look at the files. And they brought him in, but not with the intent of doing the cursory investigation, the aforementioned cursory investigation. They brought him in with the intent of attacking and discrediting him. And at some point, he got an acronym messed up, where one of it was like CAS and the other one was CASI. So there was like, and I may have it wrong, but it's close. CAS or CASI, close. And he said CASI when he meant CAS. And some members of the Democratic Party said, well, maybe he should be charged with lying to Congress because he said CAS and it's really CASI, or the reverse, whatever it may be. So as we know, if a guy comes in to make allegations against the leader of your party, the allegations are firm, you attack him, you threaten him, and then you say, we maybe should charge him with a felony and throw him in jail. Why? Because he got an acronym wrong. God forbid he would have got a pronoun wrong, they'd have killed him on the spot. But he didn't. He got an acronym wrong. So he gets an acronym wrong, and they're like, hey, we should do something to lock this guy up. And it's all in the papers. Hey, Matt Taibbi, should he be arrested, charged, beaten, killed, murdered, or worse, right? Now, you're the next guy, and you read over some info, and it's like, hey, man, Joe Biden was involved in all kind of criminal activity, and here's the information. What are you going to do? And let me add this. Matt Taibbi goes home, and what happens? The the IRS has been to his house. Now the IRS is snooping around. So you testify against Joe Biden. The Democratic Party, threatens to arrest you and charge you with a felony for getting an acronym wrong, and the FBI shows up at your house. The IRS shows up at your house to talk to you about taxes from 5 years ago. Might I add, the particular period that they brought up, he actually owed, the government actually owed him money. So now you're going to arrest him because he didn't properly fill out his taxes, and so the government could give him money? I don't think we have what would be considered mens rea, criminal state, a criminal state of mind, criminal intent. Well, he didn't turn in his taxes and there was criminal intent. Really, what do you think he was trying to do? He wanted to make sure that the government didn't give him that $1,500 that they owed him. Really? So it's absurd to argue that the IRS had a legitimate reason to be there to go after this man for failing to pay his turn in his taxes, which apparently he did anyway. When the government owed him money, he didn't owe them money. But as an intimidation tactic, it was a pretty good intimidation tactic, because he's going to look at it and say, this sucks. But anyone else who was thinking of turning in evidence against Joe Biden is going to be scared witless. And they're going to say, I got all the info in the world on the big guy, but I better not do that. Why? Because I don't want the IRS showing up on my front doorstep and getting me. And I don't want Stacey Plaskett or whoever the hell saying that I should be charged with a crime. That's it. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the EU, Cuttergate, bribery, all kinds of criminality going on there. That's why I say it's an international political crime family. Look, one of the things that happened that we found out about Joe Biden, about think about this. When I say an international crime family, I touched on this the other day, but here's the perfect example. When the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine, Hunter Biden went on the board of Burisma, right? It was a gas company. Who else was on that board? Cofer Black, former, I believe he was the chief of counterintelligence or something for the CIA, right? And the former Polish prime minister, he's on there. They're all getting paid heavy. They're all cleaning up, getting paid. Now, they overthrew a government, they go in the country, and now they're getting paid big time. Now, if they hired Hunter Biden so that he could close, as they said, the evidence has come out now, that the former CEO of the company said, we hired Hunter Biden to make sure these cases got closed. There was an email in Hunter Biden's laptop that said, hey, Hunter, make sure you understand we're hiring you so you close these cases. All that stuff is out there. Do you hear one person, the so-called squad, whoever it is? These people are lawyers. They know the law. Not all of them, but a high percentage of politicians in the United States are lawyers. You got former prosecutors, defense lawyers, you name it, right? Law professors, lots of people there. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't take a degree in law to understand that Joe Biden has been credibly accused of criminal activity and of all kinds of. He was in the vice president. So if he used his presidency to for these ill-gotten gains, then now you're getting into all kinds of things, the least of which being malfeasance of office. But the bottom line is, what's the Democratic Party's position? Is it we've got to at least do an investigation and make sure everything's clean? Nope. Is it that we need to have a special prosecutor? We need to turn it over to the Department of Justice. Somebody needs to. Nope. None of that. It is the blue line. It is, look, here's what we got to do. We got to make sure that we intimidate anyone who's bringing information about Joe Biden's criminal activity. And let me add this. If you have a police department and the culture of that police department is to cover up illegal activity for certain officers, what do you think? They only do it for one? You think they only do it for the chief? You think the culture of a police department will be, hey, we're gonna cover up illegal activity, but only for certain people? No, that's the culture of the police department. They're covering up activity. The bottom line is this: the culture of the Democratic Party is the neoliberal blue line. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not just the police department. Let me give you an example of a trial that I covered 2016, 17. I don't remember which one, but a guy named Bob Menendez. He's a senator from New Jersey, and he was accused of criminal activity. And there was a trial, and in that he was accused. There was a guy who was involved, I believe, in Medicaid fraud. This is going to shock you. One of the things the guy did was he had young girls. My understanding is there weren't allegations that they were underage, but they were young. So, hey, if they're 19 or 20 or 18, if they're legal age, it's none of my business, except that apparently they were from the Dominican Republic. And what this guy was doing was he was getting them over here, getting their paperwork done, getting their passports, getting their green cards back and forth, whatever the case may be. And he was having some difficulty doing it. So he got Bob Menendez to make the calls over to the State Department or wherever it needed to be had. So he had a senator in his back pocket. Meanwhile, Senator Bob Menendez was riding around. You know the game, don't you? Flying around on a guy's plane. Oh, somebody said Coofer Black. It's Cofer. But whatever the case, the game. Using the guy's luxury apartments, whatever. The guy was very, very rich. And bottom line, Bob Menendez helped him with his nefarious activity, and in return, clearly and obviously, he was helping. Bottom line, quid pro quo, right? Now, one of the things I found interesting about that case, Bob Menendez is a Democrat. He's a war hawk and neocon idiot, lunatic, but he's a Democrat. And what we're told is that the parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, are evil. And they hate each other, think each other are evil, and never the twain shall meet. But one of the things I found interesting about the case, that was a case that I covered extensively. Lindsey Graham and a couple of other senators, bipartisan group, showed up at the courthouse. And when asked why they were at the courthouse, they said, they were there to support a fellow senator. And they even talked about it. Well, this is the chamber. There's only one of us and 100 of us in the world, and we're very close, blah, blah, blah. So what they said was, one of our people is accused of some criminal activity. And hey, this is a team, man. We're here to support him. Let me ask you this. If you're a judge and you're hearing a trial for a senator, that's pressure already as a judge. There's a certain amount of pressure, whether you want to believe it or not. But then you look out and a bunch of other senators show up. Like you're a judge and you're hearing a trial for a mafia, and a bunch of guys show up. They got dark glasses and dark suits, and they're looking at the judge and they're smiling. Hey, how you doing, Judge? Nice day, huh? You're like, the judge is like, yeah, nice day. Yeah. Real nice day, dude. Enjoy the weather. That's intimidation tactic. They're like, holy crap, the mafia showed up. I think I'm going to end up in a trunk, right? So when you are a judge and you're hearing a case for a U.S. senator and you look, and there's Lindsey Graham, there's a prancing around, staring you in the face. There's a couple other senators. What are you guys doing here? Well, there ain't that many senators, Judge, and we're real powerful. Just throwing that out there. I'm sure you're going to do a fine job with this case, Judge. A fine job. We're real powerful. There's only 100 of us in the world. We got a lot of political power. Have a nice day. And the judge is like, ooh, boy. Not guilty. Click. That's how the game goes. Come on. So when it came down to it, that blue line thing, when it comes to the Democrats, right? They're like, hey, Joe Biden's accused of a crime. We got to stand up for him. We got to beat down anybody that's accused. We got to use our authority to intimidate, harass, chill, whatever we can do to make sure Joe Biden walks. And as there's a saying in the Muslim world, me against my brother, me and my brother against my cousin, me, my brother, and my cousin against you, right? Bottom line is, when it comes to charges, okay, we're the Democrats, we're standing up for a Republican. I mean, for our party. Now, when a Republican gets charged, you're like, well, I'm a senator and he's still a senator. We got to stand up for him. Standing up for somebody accused of criminal activity, and it looks like Menendez may very well be charged with a crime again. The man appears to be a career criminal. However, I guess he's not in a way, because you got to get convicted. And if you're a senator, you probably ain't going to get convicted. You're probably not. And let me add this. The fact that they let him go, let me see. Bob Menendez, I'll say charges. Let me see what happened. There we go. Senator Robert Menendez faces a new investigation. The inquiry comes 5 years after the Justice Department dropped its corruption case against Mr. Menendez. There we go. Yeah, its bottom line is, Menendez is crooked as a rattlesnake. I think we know that. Let me see if I can find, let's say, past month. Bob Menendez charges, let me see, news. Bottom line is, Menendez, as always, 27 days, Justice Department to retry Senator Menendez on corruption charges, right? Bottom line is this: the man's a one-man crime spree. That's what he is. And guess what? You think he's by himself? That's what our Congress is now. And when it comes to the party, they'll stick with their own party. But when it comes to the Congress, they'll stick with all the members of Congress because they're crooked. And but the difference is this: I'll say this. The Republicans don't even try to hide it. And look, forget the word liberal. The Republicans, the party is just as neoliberal as the Democrats are. They're neoliberal warmongers. Both of them, they're cults. But I'll give it to the Republicans. They don't try to pretend. They're not like, hey, we're here for justice and goodness. They're like, we support the police and we don't care what they do. Hey, this police officer grabbed an 87-year-old heart patient and beat her to death with a blunt object. The Republicans are like, well, we've got to support the cops. The people aren't angels out here. That 87-year-old heart patient tried to roll over his foot with her wheelchair. Well, she was blind. Even worse, she was swinging aimlessly around. She could have killed somebody. She could have hit him with her white cane. She had to be neutralized. The officer did a good job. That's the way the Republicans play it. The Democrats are like, oh my gosh, a policeman beat an 87-year-old heart patient to death with a blunt object. Yes. What do you got to do? They need more training. $30 more billion to police for training. They like reward whatever the police do. The Republicans just defend it and say, hey, whoever it was needed killing. Haven't you ever watched a Clint Eastwood movie? That guy needed killing. The cops killed him. Good work. The Democrats pretend to oppose it. Yeah, well, perhaps the officer was untrained. Poor, unfortunate fellow was untrained. And when that blind 87-year-old heart patient accidentally rolled over his foot, he saw the white cane. He thought it was a shotgun. He acted in haste. I mean, hey, Tennessee versus Garner, think about it. It just says a police officer, if he's in fear for his life, he can use deadly force. So that apparently is what the case. So, hey, you know what? What we need to do is give the cops a raise and another $30 billion for training, and let's send them some tanks and military gear. F-16s, that's what the cops need. F-16s with cluster bombs. That's coming next. That's the only thing they don't have at this point. I don't know if you look at police departments in the U.S. lately. The only thing they don't have is F-16s with cluster bombs. And the Democrats will give, if they, all they got to do is beat a couple people to death, shoot a couple of unarmed people, and the Democrats' plan is always the same. We must reward them. But they will play the game and say, we're against the blue line. Cops shouldn't look out for other cops. But my dad used to have a saying, children don't listen, they watch and learn. The cops are looking at the Democratic Party and they're like, well, we're not supposed to, look out for our buddy when he's involved in criminal activity. The Democrats, definitely not. Whatever you do, don't do that. They're like, well, what about the allegations against Joe Biden in Ukraine? The Democratic Party would then say, officer, I think you're involved in criminal activity. You may need to be arrested. And I think you might have lied to Congress and something else. By the way, the IRS will be taking a closer look at your taxes for the last 10 years. We will deal with you later, sir. We will deal with you. That's it. That's where we are. So now what we know clearly about our Congress, clearly about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're done. At least they don't try to hide it. Look, my dad used to have another saying, I prefer a rattlesnake over a copperhead. At least it rattles first. You can walk in the other direction. You hear it. There's a rattlesnake. I'll go in that direction. A copperhead, you don't see it. You step on him. Wham! He grabs you on the side of the ankle. You got problems. It's all downhill from there, or uphill rather, right? You're not good. Your day will be ruined. So the deal being, the point that he was making was, look, I would rather have somebody that's straight to the point with me. Don't beat around the bush. If you don't like me, say I don't like you. If you hate me, if you want to see me dead, say I want to see you dead. That way I can keep my eye out and you won't if you try to kill me, I'll be looking, right? The Republicans, they're good to go. They are who they are. The Democrats, see, that's what I hate about the Democratic Party. They try to play this game like they're the good guys. We're going around the world to bring democracy. No, you're not. You're going around the world like pirates to steal stuff. And when it comes to this blue line, yes, we're standing up against we're standing up against police brutality and the blue line, right? I remember, just as an aside, there was this thing happened in Baltimore, and the cops flipped out, and members of Congress flipped out, and it's got to be something done. And it was like some people on the street made this video that said, don't snitch, right? It was the infamous don't snitch video in Baltimore. I could look it up right now. And they're like, don't snitch to the cops. Don't tell the cops anything, right? Well, the police department went berserk. How dare they say don't snitch? The Democratic Party, even all the way up to Congress, it got big. Don't snitch. That's terrible. That's the way why our society's falling apart. If you see something, remember this, if you see something, say something. You'll see that. You'll be literally riding down the road in the United States and you'll see it over the highway. Dial 1-800-492-TIPS. See something, say something, right? You think your neighbor's involved in something, call. I remember when I had a friend, I worked with the FBI. I had friends that worked over there, and they said those tip lines, about 90% of them were people calling and saying, yes, my next door neighbor's a Muslim. And they'd be like, all right, and what's he doing wrong? He's a Muslim. Okay, great, wonderful. Now, what is he doing wrong? He's being a Muslim. Are you kidding me? He's probably a terrorist. They're like, what's he doing right now? It looks like he's grilling something, and he's dancing around with his 4-year-old kid in the back seat, drinking some iced in the backyard, drinking some iced tea. That's right, Muslim-y stuff. Come get him. And the FBI would be like, yeah, we don't have anything right here. Not that I'm standing up for the FBI, because, I'll put it like this. If you called them and said, hey, I've got videotape of Joe Biden doing something illegal, they'd be like, yeah, we're on the way to get it. Really? And what else are you going to do? You're going to have an accident, so you can't tell anybody that we're probably going to just cut your tongue out, gouge your ears out, and jam screwdrivers in your ear so you can't never hear, speak, or talk again. Oh, by the way, we'll cut your fingers off so you can't write. You're never going to tell anybody, and we're going to destroy the evidence. That's probably what they do. And if you went to the Democratic Party, hey, the FBI killed this guy. Well, we don't believe that. You're just a Russian propagandist. We are looking at, think about this. When you have political parties and political entities that deliberately, with malice and aforethought, hide criminal activity, right? Who does that? A criminal organization. These are what's called in the U.S. RICO crimes, right? These are RICO crimes. And really, to be quite frank, the Democratic Party should be charged under the RICO statute. What is the RICO? Racketing, influence of corrupt organizations. RICO is racketing, influence, and corrupt organizations. And what is how does RICO work? And when I explain this, you'll say the Democratic Party should be investigated for RICO crimes, but who'd investigate them, right? As an example, let's say I'm a member of a criminal organization, right? Okay, let's just say I rob a bank. Why? Because I want the money. I rob a bank because I want the money. I rob a bank, I get the money. They catch me. I'm laying out on the beach with a couple of babes, right? Smoking weed and drinking out of a pineapple, drink with an umbrella over top of it, right? Clearly and obviously, I acted on my own behalf so I could get that money and live the good life. They take me in, they got me for bank robbery. All right. But what if they find out that I was a member of a terrorist organization? What if they find out that I was a member of an organized crime organization and I committed that crime to further the activity of this criminal organization? Guess what? That's a RICO violation. Why is it important? Because a RICO violation is a separate charge that carries like 20 years or something. You max of 20 years, I think, is a felony. So if I could be found guilty of the bank robbery, which would be, let's say they give me 10 years for that. And they say, oh, by the way, additionally, you got a RICO violation. That's an additional 10, where before I'd only got the 10, now I got 20 or however many they decide to give me. Right. So a RICO violation means that what you did was in furtherance of the criminal activity of a criminal organization. So think about the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is involved in criminal activity in Ukraine. Not just him, Joe, Hunter. I understand Pelosi's kids. I understand Romney's kids, John Kerry's son, right? So what you have is this group of politicians, both sides of the aisle, involved in criminal activity there. Now we've got further assertions about Hunter, right? So we've got all of this criminal activity going on. Now, Joe Biden apparently has taken actions to cover that up. One of the actions that were taken, what would be interesting to find out, and nobody's asking this question, but this is an important question. When the FBI was acting illegally to censor the Hunter Biden laptop, right? When Tony Blinken allegedly called whoever it was that he called to arrange a written document that said 51 former intelligence officers say that the Hunter Biden laptop story has all of the earmarks of Russian propaganda, right? When Tony Blinken called to make that happen, clearly it was a lie, and he knew it was a lie. And the FBI knew it was a lie because they had the laptop. Here's the question. Did Joe Biden know about it? And did Tony Blinken, how much did Tony Blinken know? Did Tony Blinken know it was all a fraud, that it was all a lie? Because if Blinken and Biden were acting to censor, because keep in mind, censoring that censorship in the way that they did it was illegal. It was a constitutional violation. So here's my point. If Blinken and Biden and other people were involved and they knew that it was a lie, that they knew they were covering up criminal activity, then they were of Biden, Ukraine, then what they were doing was they were involved in criminal activity in furtherance of Biden's criminal activity, which would in fact make it a RICO violation, racketing, influence, corrupt organization. It would make it so you could now start going into the Biden team and charging people with original crimes and RICO violations. See, that's why I said Durham and these guys were a joke. They were a joke. If they set me loose on that, I could light them up. Now I couldn't because they'd kill me as soon as I turned in my first report. But I'm saying if they were to say Garland Nixon, we're letting you loose, I'd get a team of lawyers and investigators. And then you got to go into the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation, which everybody knows is crooked as a rattlesnake, right? That people were literally investing, giving money, and I say investing money in the Clinton organization, in the Clinton campaign, Clinton Foundation, whatever it was, specifically so they could get meetings with Hillary when she was Secretary of State, and emails have come out. So you are soliciting money, you're receiving money in return for meetings with the Secretary of State. There's criminal activity afoot there. And then you're hiding it up. And we find out what else happens. They then facilitate the investigation, Crossfire Hurricane investigation against Trump. They make allegations and assertions against Trump. Why? To cover up their own crimes, which means that they were acting in furtherance of what would be considered a criminal organization. Again, you got RICO violations, but the foundation being, you've got, this is evidence that points to the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, the Biden campaign team, the Clinton campaign team, and in fact, all of Congress as being corrupt, criminal, international crime family organizations that work in a bipartisan nation, partisan when they can, bipartisan when they can't, to cover it up. And see, one of the things that's going on now is the Republican Party is in a bit of a fix because most Republicans want Trump, which means they're looking at their leadership and saying, you guys better back and support Trump. And Trump is right now, 30, 40 points ahead of the number 2 guy, DeSantis. That's kind of what we call a blowout. So now you've got the Republican Party in a position where they have to try to at least give the appearance that they're going after Biden. And I would add this, it is also possible if you see them going after Biden, it isn't, if you see the deep state, if you even at some point see the Democrats and the mainstream media going after Biden, it's not because they're suddenly had the fear of God, inculcated into their being. It's not because they suddenly woke up one day and said, guys, we got to do the right thing. It will be because Biden's going to be the scapegoat. They got to try to get out of this Ukraine mess, and Biden's the guy that they're going to, drop a house on in order to get out of it. And then they'll walk away and say, hey, Biden screwed this whole thing up. It was him, which wouldn't surprise me if they do that. But if you see them going after Biden, it's not going to be because they feel like, it's going to be because they feel like they should act on behalf of, the American people to ensure that justice justice prevails. That's the last thing they want, is justice to prevail. So it all goes back to this. When I say the international political crime family, I don't just mean the Biden team. There are people that interpret that. Oh, yeah, he means the Biden. Think about it. Let me add this. And I talked about this before. How can the FBI possibly go after the Biden team when they're part of the crime? The FBI, shortly after the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine, opened the NABU, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, in Ukraine. What the hell does a police department, does a law enforcement agency from the United States, what the hell business do they have going into Ukraine, opening an anti-corruption bureau? And someone came to that FBI and gave them all the information they needed to at least do a cursory investigation against Joe Biden, and they did none of it. So you got an anti-corruption bureau, FBI anti-corruption bureau. Somebody come to the FBI with assertions, allegations, and strong evidence, and they said, we got everything we need. We got the audio, we got paperwork, whatever, Biden's dirty. So it's an anti-corruption bureau. Somebody comes to them and says, Biden is involved in corruption, and we got all of the paperwork. We know where the bodies are hidden, blah, blah, blah. And they don't look into it. They acted in furtherance of Joe Biden's corruption. Why? Because they weren't an anti-corruption bureau. They were a corruption bureau, all right, but not an anti-corruption bureau. This is an international crime family. Think about this. During Crossfire Hurricane against Trump, right? Where did it start? In London. That's MI6. What you think? You think they were doing the spooks were involved in going after Trump in London, and the MI6 didn't know about it? Well, who the hell and where is Joseph Mifsud, or Mifsud, whatever the hell his name is? Where is this guy? And who is he? Long ago, I said to someone that I know, I don't think there's any such thing person as Joseph Mifsud. I think that is a intelligence name. It is created that there's no such person. And why is it that nobody can find him and nobody's heard of him? And he was from Rome. So now you have the Italian intelligence involved. You got MI6 involved. Alexander Downer, he was involved, and he's Australian, right? You got the Five Eyes. It's an international crime family. The Five Eyes went after Trump. An international crime syndicate went after Trump to take him out so he couldn't be president, but it didn't work and he became president. But that was international, wasn't it? And what happens when someone says, look into it? Mueller, he finds nothing. Zero. Durham, he finds nothing. The one thing that Durham came out with, he didn't come out with really much of anything. He came out with some odds and ends, things that we already knew. He came out with, but one of the interesting things that Durham came out with was this, that's relevant to this conversation. And that is that the FBI, during the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, before or after, all in that period, one of the things that Durham found was that when they had allegations against the Clintons, they wouldn't go after them. They wouldn't look into them. They wouldn't go nowhere, as we can see. But now that's Durham didn't find. But what we now know is they did not go after them. They actively acted as a cover-up team for the Ukraine criminals. But any allegation, no matter how specious, no matter how dubious, against Donald Trump. Hey, I think Trump's an alien. Quick, get on this. We got to look into it. Immediately, he could be an alien. It didn't matter how dubious the claim was against Trump. To make that point, they even had instances where they deliberately lied to go after Trump. And in fact, in the end, here's the important part. Think about this. Durham found that the FBI had no legal grounds for starting an investigation against Trump. Durham found that the FBI had no legal grounds for looking into Trump. Nothing. And the fact of the matter is, they kind of really would never tell anybody why they did. They just made up lies. Yeah, we did it because it was raining that day. Hey, but it wasn't raining. Did we mention it wasn't raining, so we started because it was a sunny day? It doesn't matter why. They just made stuff up. And I would argue this. What Durham left out was, he said they didn't basically have a legal reason for starting the investigation. What Durham didn't do is, if I'm doing the investigation, I say, but they did start it. They had a reason. They didn't have a legal reason. They didn't have an open and apparent reason. The reasons that they gave us for starting were lies, which means you could now charge them for lying to you. But that means that they did have a reason. It just wasn't legal. So if I'm Durham and I find that there is no reason, now I have to research and come up with what I believe is the reason. I put the evidence together and I say they had no reason, but here are some of the things that were said. Here's some of the now, of course, you'd have to charge Mueller. You would have to charge Mueller because Mueller found out, I don't remember if there were 20,000 or 40,000 text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, two anti-Trump people who were working on the FBI investigation. Mueller found out about these 20 to 40,000 texts, and he erased them. He erased the text. So clearly what was going on here is a cover-up. If I am Durham, I got to charge him with destruction of evidence. And I got to ask him, you're a lawyer. You know better. Why did you destroy this evidence? If you tell me, I might not charge you, but it probably ain't going to do any good because I'm going to charge you anyway. So what do we see? We see Durham was involved in a cover-up by not going after, not asking questions. Literally, he had a number of people such as Jim Comey and Christopher Wray that he asked to interview, and they said no, and he didn't subpoena them, he didn't grand jury, nothing. He just said, okay. You imagine that? Did they do that during Trump investigation? Did they say, hey, you want to talk to us, Carter Page? Nah. Oh, okay, well, have a nice day. That ain't what they did with anybody, did they? Why? Because they were acting in furtherance of a criminal organization and the criminal means and goals of the Biden administration, of the Clinton people, of the Democratic Party. They were acting on behalf of the system. But it's not just the Democratic Party. Remember, I told you that when Menendez was in trouble, there were other senators from both sides of the aisle that showed up. They were acting in on behalf, and this is, I guess, what I'm getting to, of a criminal system. Look, the U.S. goes around the world and does all kinds of illegal things, overthrows countries, robs and steals. Did you know that the United States at one time went to Haiti, invaded Haiti, went to the safe, took the gold of that country, literally stuck up Haiti, went to Haiti, went to their safe, took all their gold, brought the gold, brought it back, and put it in the vaults of one of the major banks here. They literally strong-armed Haiti. And then they'll tell you, well, Haiti's poor because, well, the people just don't know what to do, whatever. They literally robbed them at gunpoint. The U.S. Marines, as who was it that said war is a racket? They literally robbed it. Look it up. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. These are criminals. They, in the same way, when Venezuela put their gold in the Bank of London and said, "Hey, man, when we want it, we can come get it." And London said, "Sure." And then Venezuela said, "We want our gold, 1.4 billion." And London said, "Nah, you can't have it." Russia, they got a couple hundred billion. Last I heard it was 30 billion in reserves. And the West said, "Nah, in fact, what we think, we might just take that money and give it to Ukraine." Well, you know what the oligarchs in Ukraine are going to do. It's going to end up back in Biden's hand, to be quite frank. Hey, I'll put it like this. Whatever the Russians had, 10% is going to end up in the hands of the big guy, and Hunter's going to be smoking some of it up. Hunter is going to smoke some of that money. You can be sure of that. But what do we have? We have a criminal organization. And do you hear the squad? Where's the squad? Do you hear Stacey Plackett or Plaskett, what the hell her name is, whoever? Do you hear any of these Democrats that run around with the holier than thou language, how the policemen have to be held accountable, this person has to, everybody's got to be held accountable. But you know who doesn't have to be held accountable? Joe Biden. They stand up for their team. They have a blue line. When there is crime and criminal activity afoot in their party, they're going to be there to keep anybody from finding out. All right. Let us look. So I guess that's it. I guess that's it. I guess before I do the super chats, I guess that's it. And that is, if a little old schmuck like me, right, if I can say, when I was in law enforcement, and this was my thing, and this is what I said to people: I'll help you if you're right. I'll look out for you, but I'm not going to swing for you, man. I ain't going to hang for you. But and if I could say that, and something comes to me and I'm like, it's got to be looked at to it, I ain't going down for the next guy. I didn't do that. That's the way I looked at it in law enforcement. You did something you hadn't do. I got a partner, whoever, he did something he has no business doing. And people look at me, are you going to talk? You damn right. I didn't do it. This is my job. I ain't losing my job for that idiot. I didn't do it. If I had done it, maybe I try to cover up for myself. I don't know, but I got enough sense to do it. And you don't have enough sense not to do it. Don't ask me to get fired, because if they find out that you did it and I covered up, we both get fired. I ain't getting fired. Bad idea, pal. You shouldn't have did it. I ain't getting fired. I did my years. I got my retirement, and I'm here today. And every time an instance came up like that, they knew what was going to happen if it was me. Hey, did you see anything, Garland? Yes, I did. What'd you see? That guy right there grabbed somebody by the hair and punched him in the snoot. Hey, you can judge right or wrong. That's what I saw. Would you be willing to testify in front of investigations? I'll tell everybody, this is what I saw. If it was right or wrong or indifferent, that's for you guys to decide. But I'm talking. I wasn't losing my job because somebody else was a moron, an idiot, or couldn't keep his hands to himself. Wasn't happening. That blue line crap didn't work for me, but simply because I didn't do it. I don't mind paying the price for the things that I do, but I ain't paying the price for the things that the next guy does. That was my position. But here's the difference. These Democrats are like this, and that's the problem you have. They're acting outside of the restrictions of democracy, outside the restrictions of the Constitution, outside of the restrictions of the law. Look, that's why the hell that when Ukraine, why do you think they built all of these research labs in Ukraine? 46 of them. Why do you think the FBI built their National Anti-Corruption Bureau office in Ukraine? What the hell do they need to be there? Why'd they do that? And did you know this? One of the things that came out of Naboo was, in fact, criminal, if you ask me, in that Paul Manafort was the Trump campaign, the head of the Trump campaign, and they wanted to get him and take him down, right? So NABU, these FBI in there, they helped put together this black ledger. It was a thing that said that Manafort was getting money from shady characters. It hit the newspapers here. Trump had to fire Manafort as his crime fan, as his campaign manager, right? As soon as Trump won, they came forward and said, "Oh yeah, you know that black ledger with Manafort? Yeah, it was wrong. He didn't get any money. They made it up to get rid of Manafort. And as soon as Trump won, they were afraid they were going to be caught, so they came out and said, "Oh yeah, that was mistaken. It wasn't it." So what did they do at NABU? One of the things they did was cooked up a lie about Paul Manafort to take him out. It came out of the FBI. That was never investigated, and it should have been, because it was criminal activity and election interference. So my point being is, never, if you hear the Democratic Party, if you hear any members of Congress ever talk, well, you'll never hear the Republicans talk about it because they could care less, right? They support the police no matter how dirty they are, which I don't believe in, and I was a cop. But the Democratic Party claims, and a lot of times, see, that's the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party for you schleps who don't know U.S. Politics. The Republicans, for the most part, don't even claim to be the good guys. They just say we're doing this, that, or whatever because whatever, right? The Democrats, on the other hand, claim to be the good guys. We're here for the little guy. We're here for the people of color. We're here for the trans people. We're here for the downtrodden and those who need help. That's who we're here there for. And they do the opposite. That's the difference. One of them doesn't even claim to help the little guy, and he doesn't. The other one claims to help the little guy, and he doesn't. That's the difference. One of them claims to be standing up for law, justice, and the American way, and the other one, they both claim that, and neither one of them are. That's the bottom line. But when it comes to that, when it comes to Biden, the criminality, when it comes to the Clinton people, the criminality is just astounding. Stunning is the word. It is stunning, the level of criminality in the Biden administration, in the Biden family itself. None of them have any problems with Hunter. None of them have any problems with Hunter, chasing around very, very young people. And let me add this. This woman, Stacey Plaskett or whoever it was, that's been going after Taibbi and going after RFK Jr. and whoever is there, right? Come to find out, she was getting money from the Epstein people and working for the Epstein people. You can't make this stuff up. So let's be honest. What is she going to do other than cover up criminal activity? She was getting loot from the Epstein people. Let me find it right here. You do believe me, Stacey. Plaskett. I'm looking it up in real time. Here, there's any number of them. Now, you ain't gonna believe that, but all right, there we go. Now, this is the person who's, look at this. VI delegate, Virgin Island delegate to Congress, Stacey Plaskett, accepted contributions totaling more than $34,000 from Jeffrey Epstein and 4 of his associates from 2014 through 2020, according to partial transcript. She met with Epstein at his New York City mansion sometime in the fall of 2018 to discuss campaign contributions, but ultimately arranging a $30,000 donation to the Democratic the Congressional Campaign Committee because the wealthy financier did not pass its vetting process, right? So bottom line is this. Plaskett testified that she was introduced to Epstein as a potential donor by a St. Thomas attorney at whose firm she worked at the time, sometime in 2013 when she was preparing for run for office. Here's the kicker. Plaskett responded, "I do not recall," to many of the questions by Peter G. Neiman, a partner at Wilmer Hale, which is representing J.P. Morgan in the suit, including inquiries about how many times she met with Epstein. Do you think it was more than 5 times? No, she said. She did, however, meet Epstein at his Upper East Side townhouse in New York City sometime in the fall of 2018. So the bottom line is, so here's the bottom line. Let me kill that right now. So the bottom line is this: they're rotten to the core from top to bottom. They would take money from the devil himself, if I believed in a devil. They would take money from anybody. It doesn't matter. And what we found out about Plaskett is this: she had much more ties to Epstein than just that. She had a lot of ties to Epstein. She was involved with Epstein's people and his financiers for many, many years. I suspect that's how she got into Congress. I'm just throwing it out there. I suspect her ties to Epstein were very valuable in getting her sorry behind into Congress. But again, what are we getting at here? We're talking about criminal organizations. So do you think somebody who's getting loot from Epstein, who's being financed by, this intelligence honeypot intelligence operations guy, do you think that they're going to want Joe Biden to be caught with his dirt? She can't. They own her. God only knows what she was involved in. So the bottom line is this: it's one big crime family, top to bottom. How about this? Nancy Pelosi and all of her stocks. Do you remember when COVID started? The first COVID thing happened, and one of the things that we found out was that a number of members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, had, as soon as they found out about COVID, before we did, they sold stocks. And they told their rich friends who also sold stocks. This is the way they do things. The blue line is Congress. The blue line is each party. They got to look out for each other. It's a sad state of affairs. So whenever you hear a member of Congress, a member of the Democratic Party talk about the blue line of the police department and how police departments, we've got to do something to stop them from standing up for each other when it comes to issues of criminality, laugh them out of the room. Because they ain't going to do you. Why don't you try it before you get them to do it? All right, let us look. We're going to the super chats. Sparky says, make Russia Ukraine again. Kashid, thank you. Rashida Khalid. Sparky says, Putin is an anti-globalist hero. Sparky says, Garland's coolest job was hovercraft pilot. That was my favorite. Build a better world with bricks, says Sparky. Sparky's on a roll tonight. You're rolling, Sparkster. Keep on trucking, Garland. Gotta love Sparky. Sparky's going for it. Free Gonzalo Lira and Julian Assange. Hear, hear. Next, Sparky says, go FBI, take the CIA with you. 6 in one hand, half the other in the other, huh? Why doesn't Congress interview Andrei Martyanov? Is that a thin Democratic blue line? They don't want the truth. Crown Heights Brainiac. Oh, I remember a group called Crown Heights Affair. All right. This was way back. High Road Records says, Free Gonzalo Lira and Trump 2024. Are you on, or will you get on the orange man train, Garland? No, I'm not a Trump guy. I could vote for RFK Jr. I could vote for Cornel West. One of those two are more down my line, right? But I'm not a Trump person. I'm not a Trump person. There's some areas of politics where I definitely do not align with Trump. I've often said this, though. If somebody put a gun to my head and said, Garland, we're going to shoot you. Joe Biden and Trump is there, and we're going to shoot and kill you. You've got to pick one or die. I would have to vote for Trump before I'd vote for Biden. But that's just saying that's a lesser of two evil way of thinking, which I don't think lessers of two evil. So I'm not a Trump person. I'm not a Biden person. I can vote for RFK Jr. I can vote for Cornel West. So I'll be honest with you. No shame in my game. I ain't trying to hide nothing. Sparky says, Garland, you're a good and righteous man. Thank you, Sparkster. I don't know about all that. But, I just live my life. Sparky, seemed to me that Debbie Wasserman Schultz had the Awan brothers knock off Seth Rich, so it was sloppy, and why DWS had to step down from head of DNC. Yeah, there was something, Imran Awan, the people, I covered that story a lot, and that was very interesting, wasn't it? How they were involved. These people it was crooked. The Imran Awan story. I'm glad Sparky knows about that. With Debbie Wasserman Schultz, these were people who were working for the Democratic Party. They were working on their servers. They had all the access to servers at the DNC. And see, that's the thing about it. They had access to DNC servers. They had access to all of the DNC computers in Congress, and they came to find out that they had extra servers in there that weren't supposed to be there, that they were downloading stuff, that it appeared that they were taking stuff off the Democratic servers, the DNC servers, the other servers, and sending them to something overseas. It wasn't the Russians. And DW, and they were being paid exorbitant amounts. They had people on their payroll, like one guy worked at McDonald's, another person worked at a car lot. Basically, they had ghost employees. The Imran A1 story showed massive corruption, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz was involved. The DNC was involved. So thanks for bringing up the infamous Imran A1 story. Kinky 2, hey, Kinkster. Will the deep state allow Biden to continue his campaign through the primaries? I don't think that it's a matter of them. I just don't think he can. I don't think he is cognizant enough to do it anymore. I don't think he can do it. Hunter Biden implies the existence of gatherer Biden. No, we got hunter gatherer Bidens. That's a good one. I like that. Let's keep going. Sparky's on a roll tonight. Saw B&W security video from a DC station 2 weeks after Rich's murder, showing two guys from waist down running up and shooting Rich. Could have been two spindly-legged pacifists. Never saw it again. I don't know. But poor old Seth Rich. I think that he was done in, and I think it had to do with the DNC servers. That maybe I don't know, but I think I suspect it was. The entire system is corrupted. No political solution is available. What to do? Yes, there's a question mark at the end of that, and accurately so. What to do? Sparky saw an interview with Debbie Wasserman Schultz before she reached national prominence. I remember thinking, this lady is really a gangster. She's a charm school grad now compared to then. Yes, she's a knuckle dragon ape. She is a knuckle dragon ape. How about Sparky says, correction, make Ukraine Russia again. There you go. Thank you so much, Sparky. You're always. Now we're going to look over on Rockfin. Is there anybody? Yes. Somebody said something on Rockfin. Laura, Baza, Garland, and love Garland and Rockfinners. Thank you very much, Larza. Fred Edwards says Pakistani ISS operatives inside Congress paid by DNC Awan brothers. Yeah, anybody look up that? I covered that, man. There was something real crooked about that. Real crooked. At any rate, thanks a lot, you all. Certainly appreciate it. My God, man, we've been on for an hour and 16 minutes. I can't believe it. My name's Garland Nixon. Thanks a lot, everybody. Please share this on all your social media platforms. Smash the like button. Beat the crap out of that like button. But as somebody said earlier, don't lick the like button. Please don't lick it. It could have bacteria on it or whatever the hell. So don't lick the like button. Smash it instead. And not too hard because we don't want to break your computer because I'm going to do another show. Guess what? I'm going to be on tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning with guess who? Her name is Jody Brar. She's from the UK, and we're going to be talking about the decay of imperialism and the decay of colonialism. The world is changing, and I'm going to be talking about it with the lovely and brilliant Jody Brar, 8:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking forward to that. Everybody, don't forget also go to rockfin.com/Garland Nixon, where you can become a member at no cost. And if they throw me off YouTube, which they may, if they throw me off YouTube, if they don't like my scales of justice here, then you can find me at Rockfin. It's free, doesn't cost a dime. However, if you can't afford it, please become a Rockfin subscriber. That's $14.99 a month, or about $12.40 a month, because they give you 2 free months if you join for a year. If you can afford it and you want to support my Rockfin channel, I certainly appreciate it. Got my Cash App information there. Buy me a coffee. It's great. A lot of people do that. Buy me a coffee. It says like, buy Garland a coffee for $5. And then you can buy as many coffees as you want. How many do you want? And then it says, do you want to do a subscription? You can do it just like Patreon and do a monthly thing on $5, whatever a month on. So buy me a coffee is great. A lot of people choose that. And of course, Patreon. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I will be up in the morning with Jody Brar. Peace. I'm out.